Okay. Till yesterday, we were just checking on the do while loop. Okay. And let's continue with that. Okay. After the do while loop, we have another loop that we need to discuss about, that is for loop. Okay. So for loop, for loop, where when we need to use for loop, right? Sometimes you need to repeat the task several times, and the number of times it should be repeated. Okay. Like, as an example, if you take, in a week that you need to set up an alarm, to wake up at 6 a.m. Okay. So that alarm has to be repeated for 7 times. And so type of repetitive tasks that are done Java using by the loops, right? So this is how the for loop also. Okay. So the for loop, will be having, this syntax, for start value in the condition to stop and the proceed underscore code. Okay. So that means, like, to increment, the loop value of the start value, we are going to write it at the proceed code. Okay. So in between, like, the parentheses, we will be writing the instructions to repeat multiple times, for the loop, right? So yeah, similarly, this is an example. So for loop int I equals to 1, semicolon, I less than or equals to 10, semicolon, I plus plus, and system dot out dot printer, and we are printing I, or hello world. Okay, so the above statement will be repeated for 10 times, and it is going to print on the screen. Okay, so yeah, we already discussed the start value. It is going to be this, and the condition stop, it will be in the middle, and proceed code will be, at the last, to increase the values. Okay. Okay. So let me go back, to applet. As we have do while loop over here, similarly, we do have for loop also. Okay. So it is very simple, like what we have it here. Okay. So I've just taken that same demo. Hello for loop. Okay. So let's run this. Yeah. Now for loop. Okay. So it printed 10 times for us. Okay. It's simple. Like, we whatever we have in the example that we just saw in the for loop. Yeah. We just added the same thing over here. Okay. So let me go back to the PPT. Okay. So after the for loops, okay. So let's jump into the OOPS concepts. Okay. For Java. Okay. So there is object-oriented programming, and yeah, it is actually a methodology in programming, which enforces us, to use object kind of mechanism in the application, or, in the programming. Okay. So here are all the, the object oriented programming concepts, and is class, object, inheritance, and polymorphism. Okay. Abstraction and encapsulation. Okay. We are going to check each and everything, in deeper, what exactly it is going to be. So let's start with class. Okay. So we'll start with introduction, and, then we go with a class. Okay. So in the introduction, if you see on the top that you might be seeing it now clearly. Okay. So the top image that you see it here, it is a class representation, and the below one, it is instance or object representation for the class, right? So if you see on the class, we were saying that building and dog as a class, building as a class, and computer as a class. Okay. But when it comes to the instance, you'll see Empire State Building. It's an instance of building. And, we were having a lassie, the car, sorry, dog. It is an instance of a dog. Okay. And we are having a desktop or, a computer, you know, instance of a computer, right? Okay. So what we do, right? If we have one class, then there will be multiple instances, for each and every classes, right? Whenever we create it. Okay. So as you already know by now, a class is a container which contains all the members that are used to, write a program, right? We saw a lot of programs with class. The recent one is for loop. We are going to declare whatever we required, and we are going to put it into a class. Okay. And this class will be having all the methods, all the variables, or or whatever the things that we required for you know a program or something. It will be there over here, right, in the class. Okay, so these members includes variables, methods, and we shall learn about methods later, but just remember that. But the big question is, why use a class, right? So let's see, in the object oriented programming concept, right, when if you wanted to create an object, definitely it is required a class for that object, right? So what exactly the class is, right? Let us take an example of a car. Okay. So in a car, we will be having a four wheels as a common, and the body as a common. Okay. And what do we say, we common body, and also the inside whatever we have it, like seats, steering, all these things are very common to the cars, right? So let's see, here the class is acting as a blueprint, and the objects that you are seeing, it is just copying the blueprint. And it might change its color, and there are a few properties that it is trying to change it. And um, yeah, it is going to change those objects properties, and it looks different when when the production is completed for all those objects, right? So then but the blueprint of these all these objects, it is a class, right? So that's why what wherever the complete image, or the complete architecture is placed in the class itself, right? That's why we are calling it as a blueprint. Okay. So the blueprint consists of four tires and the car body. Okay. So from this blueprint, we can design, any type of car object, okay, which has four tires and a body. Okay. So the properties of each object can be different. Okay. And such as color, shape, etc. but will keep the original properties, whatever that it is getting from the blueprint, like, our class, right? So in other words, class defines all the aspects, that will have to be kept the same. And while the objects are a real-time example of these classes. Okay. So now we have an idea what is an object, right? Thus if you see the image, that you will be able to understand. And thus we can create an infinite objects from a blueprint. Okay. So we have from class, that means, okay, but an object can have only one blueprint. Okay. So an interesting simple concept, right? Okay. So let's take an example how we can write a car. Okay. And car class, and let's see. So we have understood, the need of classes and objects in Java. Okay. So here is an example, what we are trying to do: public car, and we have a property called white. Okay. And yeah, I have created public class test. Okay. And I just created an object for uh, car, right? And then I'm just printing the color of that car. Yeah, so here if you see in this program, actually car is the class and the object Mercedes, it says object, right? So we also have the data member which is saying for color. Okay. And that defines the color of the car. Okay. So before going to the next concept, like, let's see what exactly a method or a function means. Okay. So yeah, this is a summary that we just learned about class. So yeah, it's okay. Okay, so what are methods, right? If you clearly observe the above picture, okay, which consists like tasks for farming. Okay, so the tasks are sowing seeds, watering, fertilizing, combined together to achieve a single goal, which is, you know, good growth of crops. Okay, so and when all these processes work together, okay, we get the output in form of green, okay, nourished crops. Okay. Similarly, methods in programming are group of statements, you know, written to carry a specific operation, you know, uh, specific operation. So that's where, we call it as a method or function. Okay. Okay, the group of statements can be used multiple times once written. Okay, so for method, if you are writing something today, and if you wanted to utilize in a different class or something, yeah, you can still use that as a reusable component. Okay, so the Java also provides many built-in methods. Okay, so built-in methods are ones that which are present in the Java library and can use to be directly, in your code, right? Whenever you are writing it. So one of the example is system.out.println. Okay, so println is a method, okay, which we have used, from starting onwards, right? So the println is defined in the, it was defined by Java. Okay, so it's a built-in method. So it was defined whereas bunch of statements must be working together to perform the operation printing items into the screen, right? System.out.println is used to print, right? Yeah. So So if you don't have this kind of method concept, okay, so if you wanted to print something on the screen, okay, so what we do, we actually we actually imagine writing the same bunch of statements every time you want to print something to the screen, right? So methods enable us to perform similar operations without writing multiple, okay, without writing the same statements multiple times or repeatedly. So that's why we utilize the APIs from Java, okay, so which can help us to complete this. Okay, so what exactly, how you write a method, right? Okay, so let bigger. Yeah, writing a method is very easy in Java. Okay, so first you need to write what kind of scope that you are defining for that method. One is public and the other one is static. Okay, public static int name parameters. Okay, so what it does, it actually this is the declaration of the method. Okay, this is a declaration of the method, and inside the braces you are going to write whatever the statements that you wanted to repeat or reuse them for every time when you call this method. Yeah, you can write all those statements inside of this method. Okay, public static are the modifiers and are used to define the scope of methods. And for now, take them as granted. I'm going to show you what exactly public static and all other. So you already know about int, it's a data type, and you consider this method is going to return an int, okay, value. And the name is the method of the name, okay. And the parameters, if you wanted to pass some parameters to the method, yeah, we can pass them. Okay, so like if you wanted to do some addition, multiplication, or subtraction, whatever, okay, so you need a couple of numbers to be passed to there, right, to the parameters. So that's where we pass the parameters and mark them as us, right? Okay, so yeah, so let's begin writing some small method. And yeah, if you see here, public static void hello is our method, and inside the hello we were trying to write system.out.println some value in it. Okay, so we have written the first method of Java. So notice there is a new thing that we have added it here, that is void, right? So void means like this method is not going to return anything except it performs some operation, and it might print or it may not. Okay, okay, so now if we want to print something multiple times, we don't need to write system.out.println again and again, right? So we can use write a method, and we'll learn how to call a method soon. Okay, so okay, so we have to write a method which takes two parameters, and 1 second. Okay, just a minute. Okay, we'll learn how to call a method, but before that, if you wanted to pass some parameters to a method, to perform some operations, yeah, just uh, go to we have to write something like this. Okay, okay, so this is the syntax that we are going to do it. So public static int. and the sum method, which is having 1 and 2, okay, integers, or into data type, okay, and it is going to return the two numbers whatever we pass it, it is going to return them as a single value, okay. So how do you call those method, right? You have declared it, but you have to utilize it, and you have to use the code challenges or code whatever it is having. Yeah, we have to learn them, and we have to you know uh, so calling method is a very simple thing, like how we call a particular person in a phone, right? So we just require a syntax of the method, and the required parameters of the method. Okay, so we are going to create the method, and we're going to call it from the object. uh, Yeah, so we are going to call the method with method name and parameters, and then I will be waiting for the method response, from the um, we are going to wait for the method response. Okay, so if it is like if you are passing num1 and num2 as an integer, and you will get that integer value as an output. Okay, so now you can, I think, you can guess it, because what exactly a method is. And if the system.out.println was not present, so if you want to write something to you know if you want to write something to on the screen, so instead of calling system.out.println, you might be calling the same statements whatever we have it inside the system.out.println. So that will make a lot of difference, writing the programs, right? So yeah, this is how we call those methods. Okay, so if you see, there is a method that we declared over here on top. Okay, public static void main, and we have some system out statements, and also right after that we have a public static void main, which is calling the method inside the class. Okay. Okay, so in the same way, what we have done, actually, we have created another method, which is going to create, yeah, which is going to, you know, have a couple of parameters in it, and one is doing the sum, and we have to utilize that sum value, and we will be printing that in the application, okay, on the screen. Okay, so I'm just passing 2 comma 4 and 3 comma 6. First one is for 6 is the output, and the second one is for 9 is the output. So, and we are printing them on the screen. Okay, so to summarize, methods are reusable blocks, and reusable blocks of code, so written to perform some tasks. Okay, so methods in Java are written the following way. Okay, so public static int name parameters. So whatever the return type you see it here, like int and all, okay, you will be seeing them to that particular class and output. So if you're not using that in if you are trying to use it in a different um, places, yeah, then we might require a class instance of object to get that method to be used in your class. That's it. So for access control modifiers, it is our next topic. Okay, so access control modifier is like mainly dealing with the access, how we control. Okay, to the all the major things. Okay, so similarly, we have access modifier. Access control modifiers are keywords which are used to restrict the scope of the class, data members, and methods or constructors. Okay, so the scope defines from where these entities can be accessed. Okay, and where they cannot. Okay, so they specify which classes can access a given class and its fields, so constructors and methods. Okay, so these are the primary primary ones, whatever we have it for access control modifier. The first one is public, second one is private, and the other one is default and also protected. Okay, so the default is, you don't require to declare anything on top of the default. So generally Java consider everything as a default only, and it starts with the default, right? The default is within the package. Okay, so the default scope is you know the same. Okay, so when no access specifier is declared, it said that we have the default access control modifier. So this is true for class, methods, and data members. Okay, so entities which having default access specifier or accessible in the same package. Yeah, so package is a group of classes and methods inside the same directory. Java use directions to define projects, packages, sorry. Okay, so in this screen that you are seeing, you created a package and you try to get something. Yeah, so these packages are like the default packages, so it will be uh, yeah, the default package has an access specifier. Okay, so we don't need to specify anything explicitly. Okay, so because if you are not seeing anything in the explicitly, then it's not a default. Okay, so to have a default access specifier, we don't need to specify anything explicitly. Okay, so if you see something access specifier, okay, it doesn't have anything, so that means it's a default one. Okay, so here is a class which is not declared with any of the access specifier, but it is still going to use the modifier, access modifier as default. Okay, these classes can be accessed in the same package only, and if meaning that other class in the same folder could access it, which one in a different folder could not. You got the point, right? Like if you wanted to utilize something from here, we have to cross that as soon as possible, right? The second one is public. Okay, so the public is one of the keyword that we are going to use to declare the access control modifier. Okay, and the public is like very like we can utilize all the public classes everywhere. Okay, so like as I mentioned, there are two packages, what we see, package A and package B, and there is class A, B, and here also we have class A, B. Okay, so if you to define an entity as public, okay, so we use the keyword called public. Okay, and which when it is defined as public, okay, so the entity is accessible outside of the package also. Okay, so something, we have to write it like public. That's it, public. Okay, when you see this public, actually this is going to be accessible from everywhere. Okay, and this number wasn't this number was on, it's not a public. Okay, a class, a class could access, the contents of the class, but not this number. Okay, we have one more access specifier or modifier, that what we call like private, and this is going to stop so many things. Okay, so when you declare a class as a private, okay, so that means private access specifier, whatever we have it on the some class, we will not be able to create any objects for those classes. Okay, so the data members and the methods declared as private are accessible within the same class. Okay, so it has to, it has the least scope among all the four. Okay, so if you see here, to define an entity as a private, we use the keyword called private. Okay, so class, this class, and you know, um, we have private int number. This number is equals to 10. So that means, wherever you see the uh, so wherever we see, like, we have that class name, and also we were talking about private int num. Okay, so this cannot be accessible until unless you create a object. Okay, or you create me. So this number is kind of a private. Okay, so to access that number, we have to declare it as um, we have to declare that variable first, and then we can use it separately in the class. Okay, so and the protected, you'll be learning this protected later when we have the inheritance concept. Okay, and this protected is like between the packages, and also between the classes which are dependent each other. Okay, so this is how we define a protected. Protected is going to be there for all apps. Okay, so we have three, public, private, and protected, and same thing can be applied, to our programming. Like we can just add them. Okay, so what is constructor, right? We just learn about a method. Okay, but what exactly a constructor call, right? So generally, constructor itself, it is saying that it is going to construct something. What it is going to construct, right? It is going to construct an object of a class. Okay, so the constructor is a method which has the same name of the class, and it is going to have the same name, to the method. And yeah, that method we call it as constructor. Okay, so in this below example, we have learning constructor as a class name, and the same thing has been repeated with the name of the method, right? So constructors are often referred to as a special type of methods in Java. So every class has a constructor, and a constructor constructs its own class. Okay, so based on the input parameters, or normal. So yeah, so constructors are not going to not considered the members of the class. Okay, so it is just helpful for us to construct the object. If you do not write a constructor, the Java compiler by default can assign the constructor. Okay, so the constructor that Java compiler writes for us, known as a default constructor. Okay, and it is inserted in the code during, the compilation itself. But if we write a constructor that the default constructor is never created. Okay, so every time an instance of an object is created, when the constructor is called, a constructor is used, to provide initial values to the class, okay, to the class fields when an object is created. Okay, so just like, any other method, a constructor may or may not have, any parameters. Okay, so if a constructor has parameters, then it is known as parameterized constructor. So how we write it, the parameterized constructor, it's just simple. You just need to have the same class name and write the example. Okay, something like this, public learning constructor. It is just printing this constructor. Okay. Now we just saw how a constructor, without parameter works. So let's see how some example, how this, um, you know, constructor with a param values, how it works, right? So, so if you take an example over here, so public class learning constructor, which is having string name and type, and inside that you created a constructor which is called the same name, and it is having the yeah, it is having some data or method steps that it is required for. um, yeah, so if you see here, the public learning constructor, it is having two types of values. Okay, two types of objects that it is passing, and the first one is the name and the other one is type. So when you say this dot name and this dot type, it is going to get assigned of other methods to, our methods, right? So see, anything is strange, this dot name and this dot type, we never used it till now. This is, this is a keyword which is referring to the current object. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Thus, when we have a function over here, okay, so here is the this dot same value, okay, refers to the instance of each and every method, and every time is called. Okay, so when we check an example, something like this, okay, we have a class, and it is just private test for the all websites, right? So let's say, here is this dot sum value. Okay, so this dot sum value is referring, to referring from, object called class. Okay, so if you see here, come back, we were learning about the parameters constructor. Okay, so that means like, we will be having multiple params, okay, inside the class, and then just wait for that to be happen. Okay, so we have string name and string type, and the other way is like, we do have a method which always having string name and type this dot. Okay, here is a very best examples, for all the constructor types and these, and parameterized. Okay, so all those things we have it here, and depending on the code, okay, we'll be getting the output, proper output on the, constructors. So this is what actually we have a constructor. Okay, so we might already have multiple constructors in the application. Okay, earlier we deployed this day. Okay, so the next concept is inheritance. Okay, So we will, this inheritance is a very big concept. Okay. So we'll be having multiple types of inheritance that we're going to discuss it. Okay. So we will just connect tomorrow, for all these inheritance concept and other things. Okay. So we'll continue the same topic tomorrow. Thank you.